Oklahoma State wrestling lineup. Oklahoma State is looking to have a phenomenal upcoming year. They have a pretty young team, fairly young team with a lot of returning guys. Now, they placed third at nationals this year behind Penn State, behind Ohio State. They wrestled really, really well. They had two guys in the finals. Of course, you may know Dayton Fix and Derek White. Now, White is actually graduating, which we'll get to that heavyweight spot in just a bit, but Dayton Fix is returning. Potentially. I'll get to that in a second. They have 3 of the top 100 recruits coming in this year who may or may not wrestle, as true freshmen, and they have 2 in the top 25. I'll get to who may or may not wrestle out of those. Right now, they're tied for the second most recruits in the Big 12 behind Fresno State. And where am I getting these stats from? I want to let you guys know that I have a whole series of videos on the incoming freshman recruits. It's a very awesome video series. If you're interested in these type of stats, make sure to check it out. Now, let's go through this lineup. So first of all, starting at 125 pounds, Nick Piccininni is returning. For some reason, for whatever was going through my head, I actually thought that he was a senior and he was done this year, but guess what? He's back. And he wants vengeance on a couple of people. So this was, of course, his spot last year. What a great year for Piccininni, especially towards the middle end of the year, whenever he pinned Spencer Lee, stunned everybody when he did that at Gallagher-Iba Arena. It was incredible. He was 31-0 going into nationals, one of the few undefeated guys. He ended up placing 5th. Now, I think this spot is his again. He will be a senior this year, and I think he's going to do very, very well at 125 pounds, especially depending on where people may take an Olympic redshirt year, which another guy who may take an Olympic redshirt year, Dayton Fix. Now, Dayton Fix is the 133 returning guy at Oklahoma State, and he had a great season. Of course, as a true freshman, he ended up making it to the national finals, and he ended up losing to Nick Suriano in a very close match. And of course, those two go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But what's exciting is Dayton Fix now is on the senior men's freestyle team, the world team. So there's a very high likelihood, in my opinion, that he's going to take that Olympic redshirt year, train for the Olympic trials, and potentially make an Olympic team. Now, if he does that, that means there's going to need to be a backup guy, and that is Reese Whitcraft. Now, Whitcraft is a true freshman, and he is the number 24 overall recruit out of the top 100 recruits based from Flow Wrestling. He is a 2-time Oklahoma State champion, so you don't have some scrub coming in there as a backup. You have a tough guy in Whitcraft, and he actually, another interesting stat is he won Ironman this past year. So right now I have Dayton Fix starting, but Whitcraft could be in there depending on that Olympic red shirt. At 141 pounds, Cade Brock is a returner, and really I think that this is his spot. He's a 2-time All-American. Now, last year, actually, he didn't place, and this was a little bit upsetting for Oklahoma State. It could have put some points on the board for them, really, potentially got them up a little bit higher in the rankings. I mean, they were 3rd. They did really well, but Brock is actually a senior this year, wrestling his final season, and we'll see how he does at 149 pounds. 2 guys that could make the lineup here, Caden Gefeller and Boo Llewellyn. Gefeller is a sophomore. Llewellyn is a senior. Now, Gefeller was injured kind of at the end of the year, went 0-2 at nationals. Another guy, like I said, that could have put some more points on the board for Oklahoma State. It was a little bit unfortunate how he did it at nationals, but overall, he had a pretty great season. He was 28-6, and he's looking to earn that spot back. Llewellyn, he was injured this year, so we could see a little bit of tension here, a little bit of head-to-head, and see who makes this. As far as who I think is going to make it, I think Gefeller is going to have the 149 spot and wrestle a great season. At 157, 3 guys that could be making this spot. First of all is Wyatt Sheets. He's a returning guy who wrestled the spot last year. He's a junior. Next guy is Andrew Shomers, who is a senior. He kind of wrestled in and out. He didn't really wrestle a lot the second half of the year. like in a lot of duels. So, I mean, of course, Sheets was starting. And then the third guy who is coming in as a true freshman is Brevin Balmaceda, who is a number 25 recruit, a four-time state champion from Florida. He placed Ironman number 2. Out of these three guys, who do I think is going to make the lineup? I have to give it to Wyatt Sheets. I think he's going to end up earning the spot again at 157 pounds. At 165. Now, this is where things got to start to get interesting with weight changes. And really, I think Oklahoma State did this more than anybody this past year as far as like people going up and down. Of course, you had JoJo Smith, who was bumping up and down. He had a pretty great year, 74, 65. He was everywhere. But he actually wrestled really well at Nationals. Almost beat Alex Marinelli in the first round after dropping. And he's going to be going against Daniel Manabog, who is a freshman, number 47 recruit from Texas. He's ranked in the top 10 and his weight. But ultimately, I think that JoJo Smith is going to get this spot again. At 174 pounds, you could see JoJo Smith jumping up to wrestle here, but I think more likely is going to be Travis Whitlick, who is the number 6 recruit from 2018. I really just think that's going to be who makes the lineup. JoJo Smith's probably, he may have that weight cutting, may want to avoid it in Wrestle 74, but I think the spot goes to Travis as a redshirt freshman. At the next weight, at 184 pounds, we have two guys who could be making the lineup. Now, first of all, you have Dakota Gear, who wrestled up most of the season last year at 197 pounds, made the cut to 84 last year. He took 7th at Nationals, had a very strong end of the season. He was 30-7, ended up beating Zavatsky as well as Nino Bonacorsi, 2 strong wins at the national tournament. And he will probably be wrestling off against Anthony Montalvo, who is a redshirt freshman. Now, Montalvo, he's from California, number 4 at his weight class, 2-time California state champion. Now, a lot of people think that Dakota Gear is going to wrestle up to 97, but I think he had such a strong end of the year that he's going to want to see where and how he does at 184 pounds. So that's why I have to give Gear that 184 pound spot. I think that's where he's going to be. So who is going to wrestle 197 if it's not Gear? Well, that's probably going to be Andrew Marsden, who's a senior. Of course, he didn't wrestle last year. Preston Weigel wrestled there last year, but Marsden was 10-5 in his redshirt season last year, and we could see him, do pretty well. At heavyweight now, of course, you have Derek White, who made the national finals last year. He is gone. He is graduated. So who's there? We have Cornelius Putnam, who is a junior. What a name, Cornelius Putnam. What a cool name, am I right? Let me know, do you guys think that's a cool name? I think he is most likely going to start here. I don't think there's really anybody else that's going to compete with him. He's a junior. He was 8-5 last year in his redshirt season, and it's unfortunate that Oklahoma State lost Derek White. But as far as how this team overall is going to do, what are my opinions? Well, I have to say that I think Oklahoma State is going to do well again this year. However, I mean, they're definitely going to place top 5 at nationals. As far as where in the top 5, I see them more along that 4 or 5 spot, especially depending on whether Dayton Fix wrestles. Because you go from Dayton Fix being a national finalist, possibly a national champion next year, to not even wrestling. And you still have a strong backup, but Dayton Fix would be a big loss. I think that there's too many other strong teams right now to see what's happening. But if you're interested in other lineup changes like this, make sure you check out my other lineup changes video, lineup previews, so you know everything that's going to be happening in the 2019-2020 season.